If you've watched my channel before, you know I'm always down to try a new vehicle building game, and today is no exception to that. Payload Studios, the developers of the original TerraTech, reached out to me to try out their brand new game, TerraTech Worlds. Now ordinarily, I turn down the vast majority of sponsorship opportunities I receive, but when I saw this, I knew I had to jump on it. Now starting out, I decided to play through the tutorial on my own time, but after just a few minutes, I went into the planets menu here and decided to start up a real game. And after spawning it next to this tree, the first thing I did here was drive around a little bit and started to mine this aluminum. Now that's sort of the goal of this game, and especially early on here, I wanted to collect some raw resources so I could start to build up my base. Now I also found this little plant here that I could destroy, and this gives me some carbon. Now with these, I was doing pretty good, but the last thing I wanted to try to get was some iron here, and after mining a small deposit of it, I collected all those little balls, and I wanted to put down my tech yard. This is where I'm gonna respawn, and it's also where I'm gonna do a lot of my crafting and stuff, so I wanted to put down a ramp here and see if I could get up on it. Now I was just messing around a little bit to see where I wanted to get this ramp positioned, but while doing so, I got a little too close to this plant. Now fortunately, I was able to get it from a distance here, but that's what I learned. There are some dangerous things around here, and I should probably be a little more careful. After that though, I got the ramp down, and the next thing I wanted to do was start making some platforms. Now this is where I can actually start putting down some real components here, and you can see I just expanded out a little bit, and with that, I started by putting down a workshop and also a power station. Now these are sort of the basic things you need to get off the ground, and the next thing I wanted to do was make a supply fabricator, and this is where I can make some ammo. Now I really wanted to start going out into the world and seeing what other resources there were, but in order to do that, I needed a way to defend myself, so I threw in some of the resources I got earlier and started to make some ammo. So with a couple hundred of that, I decided to take off here and see what else there was. Now immediately I went down to the water here and found this chlorine, which I didn't immediately know what to do with, but I thought it looked pretty cool, and going up this hill here, I also found this copper. Now again, I was pretty aimlessly going around right now, and all I really was looking to do was figure out where different resources came from, so progression would be a little easier later. And it was only about a minute after that, I finally saw my first enemy here. Now he was way off in the distance. I'm surprised I actually saw him that early, but I decided to trail him from a distance here and see what I could do. Now you'll notice I've been firing that laser from the front of my robot, and that's a resource laser which will do damage, just not that much. Now he had an actual gun on his robot, which was definitely a little scary for me, and while trying to avoid him, I accidentally ran into one of these plants and immediately gave up my height advantage here. But fortunately, as I was trying to get back up, it seemed like he made the exact same mistake and managed to flip himself over. This let me get near him and start to do some real damage here, which was pretty nice, and his expert driving was also helping me out quite a bit. Now I had run out of battery at this point, so I wanted to try to retreat a little bit, and in doing so, I ran into one of these plants again. Not really sure what I was even thinking that time, but fortunately it also launched him, which meant that both of us were pretty disoriented. Now it was a little while longer here. He came around the other side of the hill, and you could see me kind of keeping my distance and still just trying to take him off piece by piece. At one point, I thought I even got him because it looked like he decomposed here, but he ended up resetting here, and I still had to do a little more damage. Now, it was just a little bit longer. I finally got him for real, and you can see me collect some of the parts off of his robot. With these, I wanted to get back to my base here, but unfortunately on the way back, I fell off a slight hill and died. But at least it was a good opportunity for me to try out a respawn mechanic here, and you can see me get up the map, and it shows me exactly where I died. This was surprisingly handy, and you can see once I got there, I found the crate that I had dropped, and I just collected all the stuff that I had before. With this though, just made it back to my base here, and now with some actual parts, I wanted to make my first modification to the robot. Now the first thing I had thought to do here was to make it a little bit longer, and truthfully, I'm not exactly sure why I wanted to do this. I just thought it would look a little bit cooler, but you can see me putting down some spacers here, putting back down the battery, and you can see now I'm reattaching the back wheels. Now the big change I wanted to make though was actually throwing on this machine gun, and I wasn't sure if I had it from the start or if I got it off the robot I defeated. Either way though, I wanted to throw route on here and have a reason to use that ammo I crafted before. And while I was out collecting some more resources, I found another robot and I wanted to see how this gun would perform. Now, it seemed pretty solid here. It was definitely doing better than the resource laser, although this guy also had a gun, so I was trying to keep my distance, which meant that I was missing quite a few shots. In a much shorter amount of time though, I was able to destroy his frame and collect off a lot of those pieces. This was pretty good, and I immediately found another guy in the water and wanted to see if I could target him. Now, he had 2 resource lasers though, and he was targeting the middle of my robot, and that's when I realized the fatal flaw in my design. It's very easy to get cut in half like this, but even still, I was able to just use the front half of this to take him apart here, and with that, I took the pieces I wanted, and the ones that I didn't, I used the laser to destroy to be able to get the raw resources. So I returned back to the base, and I decided to do a few more things to actually get the progression going more. Now, I realize I haven't been focusing on that too much here, so the next thing I need to do is add down the silo, and this lets me store stuff within it. Now, this is actually pretty handy, because I had to pass up quite a few items before just because I didn't have space, and with that, I also made a small modification to the robot. You'll notice I added on this tall pillar, and I put the machine gun on it, and also put down another resource laser. Now, this means I'll be able to destroy things twice as fast, and with the gun up high, it should be a little easier to target enemies. But once again here, I set off into the world, and it wasn't too long until I eventually got targeted by a random robot. So I tried to make some evasive maneuvers here, and that's when I had learned that this machine gun plus 2 laser combo is surprisingly good. So with that guy taken apart easily, I did a little more exploring here and found this cool looking tree. Now, at first it started shooting this lightning at me, which I wasn't really sure what it was, but it didn't seem to be hurting me too much, and I wanted to see if it would drop some cool resource. After a couple times though, it eventually managed to hit the center of my robot, and that's when I had realized that it does a crazy amount of damage. Now, it done so much in fact that even after resetting my robot, I wasn't even able to get away fast enough here, and that's when I had learned these things are quite dangerous. Now, they're also dangerous to other robots as well, and I did find a lot of spare pieces around, and I was kind of thinking that that was probably a big reason for it. Now, after a bit more driving, I also noticed a big issue. Stability is kind of not great in this thing. Any small bump kind of just knocks me over, and you'll notice on big hills like this one, I'm having a really hard time getting up. Now, I also crossed this river here, and I had realized my wheels were a big problem during this fight. Now, originally, I was just trying to take on one guy here, and it was going well, but unfortunately, a second one showed up with a purple laser, and that's what I knew I was in trouble. This game is co-op, so it would have been nice to have a few friends on my team, but for this test, it was just me, so I had to struggle along. Now, worse yet, I was driving backwards because I was trying to aim my guns at the guy, and in doing so, I just drove right into the open water. This isn't necessarily an issue, except for the fact that I can't really move forward, so they had a very easy time targeting me as I was just kind of bobbing around. So I tried my best to get over to shore here, but I was very unstable, which was making this quite difficult, and unfortunately, I got cut in half as I was trying to do that. Now, I technically wasn't dead yet, so I wanted to see if I could get to shore still, and with just my front wheels, kind of like before, see if I could take them on. Now, my bouncing strategy was avoiding this laser reasonably well here, and surprisingly, I was able to get this first guy. So I wanted to collect his resources here before the other guy ended up killing me, and in doing so, a tree randomly just fell apart and then crushed me. I'm guessing that was my fault, because I was randomly shooting my laser for a bit there, but while I was still at base, before I went out to get my stuff, I wanted to throw on some bigger back wheels here and see if it would improve things. And almost immediately I had realized that was going a lot faster, and going back to the spot that I had died, trying to take on these respawned robots, I was having a much easier time. I was definitely faster than them, which was a huge advantage, and I was even able to kind of separate them out here near this hill, and this let me pretty easily take them apart. Now, in one-on-one fights, these big wheels were super nice as well, so I had realized this design was definitely a good strategy. So seeing that, what I wanted to do next was get rid of my small wheels in the front and replace them with even bigger wheels. Now, I was thinking in theory these should make me go faster, but that's when I had realized there's a limit to how much stuff you could put on your robot, and I ended up exceeding it. Now, there wasn't really a lot to remove at this point, so I thought about just getting rid of a back wheel here and going with the trike design. Surprisingly, it was actually alright, although there was a small issue. Whenever I tried to make a right turn on any uneven terrain, it always was just a disaster, and I kinda just fell over. Besides that, though, I was definitely way faster even than I was before, so I was able to start taking apart some more advanced robots, and this gave me access to some pretty cool components. Now, I found this small frame and also this Kestrel frame. Now, the main advantage of this Kestrel frame is that it gives me extra speed, and that sounded like a pretty good addition. So back at base, I pretty much took everything apart here, and you can see I started putting this frame on the bottom of the cab. And after that, I also mounted the wheels, and the other thing I really liked about this frame is it automatically has the height set properly, so I can use big wheels in the back and small ones in the front. And after getting down some batteries in the back and also some resource lasers up front, I also mounted this armor block in the middle, which should make me a little tougher, and put the machine gun on that. So I started just bullying around some other robots, but eventually I realized there's an island way off in the distance, and I decided to go off in the open water and see if I could get there. Now, I move very slowly here, but at least since my robot is a lot shorter than before, I do stay in the right orientation, and my wheels generate a very small amount of thrust. Now, you may have noticed there's some trees growing underwater here, and this is an early build, so that's why some things aren't exactly perfect, and it was actually right after I finished playing, the developers pushed a new update, and there seemed to be a refined version of the map. After quite a while here, I finally made it over to this island, and you can see me come out of the water and start to move around here. Now, what I was really looking for on this island was some rare resources that I didn't have on the main one that I needed to complete some quests, and while I didn't find them here, I did find a lot of these landmine things that sort of just blew me up, but still in pursuit of those resources, I went in the other side of the map and I found this other island. Now, every time I went into the water, I ended up getting shot at a lot, but fortunately, I usually got far enough out that they didn't really seem to damage anything, and you can see I finally got on shore. Now, I can immediately tell this was definitely different than before, because there was some weird sand around here, and it seemed to be making me flashing red, and also increasing some danger. I'm not entirely sure what that was, and I didn't really want to find out, but I did find some rare resources that I was gonna need. Now, this tantalite I hadn't seen before, and you can see after mining it here, I carefully went into this red sand and back to try to not accumulate too much of that danger. Now, the specific thing I was looking for at this point was phosphorus, and I had no idea where to find that, but I figured I could just move around a little bit and see what to do. Now, eventually I found this plant that kind of shot like a shotgun, and while trying to avoid it, I managed to hit a landmine that landed me right next to it, and I couldn't really get away fast enough, and then I had died. Ordinarily, it's not that big a deal to die in this game, but in this particular instance, I had to go across the entire ocean again to get there, but fortunately, I did end up doing it here, and I was able to get rid of those two plants and retrieve my stuff. Now, this actually ended up kind of being a good thing, because these plants are what drop phosphorus, so I finally had everything I need to finish the campaign. And apparently at some point, I also found a laser, so I threw it on the front of my robot here, and this is that purple laser I saw before. Now, I have no idea where I picked this up, but I'm glad I did because it's super cool, and it seems to do a pretty solid amount of damage against other robots. So guys, if you want to check out TerraTech Worlds, please use the link in my description, and you can play the demo during the Steam Next Fest. This was just a taste of what there will be in the full game, so I'm honestly excited to see what the developers will produce. So thanks again to Payload Studios for sponsoring the video, thanks again to you guys for watching, and until next time.